Well, welcome, and I am your host, and my name is Britton. Today, I just wanted to get on here before we start our conversation and let you know that I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I speak to people that are in those professions, and this channel is for information only. Hopefully, it's good information that you can apply to your life. So, as I speak to those guests, and if you feel like you want to support any of those, some of them are authors, blogs, mental health advocates. They have foundations, not for profits. If you want to support those people, I'll put the links in the description below. Also, if you'd like to support the Suicide Monk podcast and help keep this moving forward, I'll put that GoFundMe in the link below. I just want to get on here and tell you a little bit about Ashes to Life coaching. It is a passion of mine to help people go from a darkness that they live in to finding who they are, and coming from that and experiencing that lifestyle, and now being on the other side of that, I want to help those that are struggling, that want to live and find that life and find that passion and that purpose. So if you're interested in that type of coaching, I have some spots available. I will leave the link down below and how you can contact me. And that's about it. Thanks a lot. We'll see you on the good side. So before our conversation, we're going to have a word from Scarlet Raven. She's going to tell you about some products that she has from White Fox Medicinals. And they are products that I use, and they help me quite a bit. So she's going to tell you about that. I'm also going to leave links below to her store, her website. I believe those are discount codes for me to you. If you need anything like that, I use the pain remedy stuff. Helps me with my shoulders. It's great stuff. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the good side. Peace.
Hi, I'm Scarlet Raven, and I am the head alchemist and founder of White Fox Medicinals, which is an all-organic, earth-based plant medicine remedy company where I make effect-based tinctures and topicals to help you feel healed, whole, and totally loved. I have stuff like the Repair Remedy Salve that will take out inflammation and pain from your muscles and your body. Other things that actually boost your spiritual inner love, like the Wild Starseed Love Cream. When you put this on, you smell intense aromas of deep Aztec chocolate, which awakens this love inside of your heart. This is edible. You can use it as a body cream. I also have a whole line of tinctures. Some of them heal the nervous system. Some of them boost your body's ability to heal itself. So whatever you're seeking for whole physical balance, that's going to incorporate your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit, then I have some beautiful healing offerings for you. So go check it out at whitefoxmedicinals.com, and I'm happy to get you all set up.
Well, welcome to the Suicide Monk, and my name is Britton Day, and today we are with Alisa. How do you pronounce your last name? Is it Gracheva?
Gracheva, that's correct.
Is it?
Yeah. Right.
Wow. What's the heritage of that?
Well,
Gracheva.
actually, there is a word in Russian that is grach rather, and it means a type of a bird. So it's a black bird. They're very smart, and I don't think we have them here, but yeah, back in Russia, it's a very common bird.
A grach.
Grach, yeah.
Huh. So Russian is your heritage?
Yes.
Nice.
I immigrated here in 2008, so that was my journey. I pretty much remember just life here, and I've never been back since 2008. And again, that's my half a life here. I would say my half of the most conscious life, because before that, I barely remember much.
Oh,
so yeah.
Really? How come?
Well, that's
Can
why
I ask these questions?
Of course. I'm very open about this, and actually, it's connected to the field I'm in right now as well, and working with trauma and understanding disassociation as well, and how that can be created through traumatic experiences as well. I figured now at this age and time for myself that that's what I've been experiencing since I was a child. That's why a lot of memories have been kind of in this little box in the compartment somewhere inside of me that I was not able to access. And going towards that and understanding why I've been in this kind of state of dissociation became my, life's journey and lesson, and also becoming more aware of it so that I can help other people dealing with similar situations.
Okay. Huh. So did you grow up in a family, or was it orphanage, or?
No, it's a family, of course, but not of course, but yes, it's a family. I didn't have involvement of my father, but also the reality of Russia back when I was little. Again, the Soviet Union just fell apart. Plus, if we're aware of transgenerational trauma, we can also understand how that can be an issue growing up as well.
Trans
It's a
trans Transuniversal trauma?
transgenerational, so it's going through,
Transgenerational. Sorry.
yeah, from generations to generations.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
my
yeah.
grandparents were, during the Second World War, active participants. My grandmother actually was an orphan at a very young age with a little sister too. So yeah, she was from the Leningrad blockade when they barricaded, the city, and
Yeah.
she was left. Her parents died out of hunger, and they were inside the apartment they lived in, and she was 12, her little sister was 6, and she had to deal with the two, corpses in another room and trying to kind of figure out life at that age. And I feel like situations like this cannot just pass by without any consequence. So,
Right.
and we carry that inside. Now we know that the body keeps the score with everything we're dealing with. So I feel like there are a lot of factors that can contribute to what we're dealing with now as adults or teenagers or kids. I feel like there's a
Yep.
lot of factors that contribute to our
Sure.
development and psyche.
Wow. What kind of brought you into the psychological field? Because you're a licensed psychologist. You do
Yeah.
EMDR therapy and
Yes.
CBT, which I don't know what CBT is. So kind of go through some of these therapies with me. They're EMDR, CBT, somatic therapy, logotherapy.
Yes.
Um,
So
hmm,
everything is pretty much a great approach to deal with trauma and as well as other consequences that come from that. Again, depression, anxiety, substance use, maybe again impairment in different areas of life, maybe social, occupational, personal development. Again, we're not looking at the trauma as something that, okay, I've been sexually abused, right? Or I've been that when I'm dealing with people. There can be a lot of factors, even not getting your needs met as a child, not necessarily having an abuse, can also lead to impairment in how we function in life later on.
sure. Yeah.
So again, observing that and seeing how that can work. And there's a lot of parts to trauma. There's a lot of layers to dealing with trauma. And so that's how I utilize all of those things that I'm talking about, with you right now. EMDR, CBT, logotherapy, spirituality, I'm very big on that. Somatic therapy goes very well with EMDR as well. And I can gladly go through all of them with you.
Yeah,
So
please do. Like,
yeah.
I've not heard a lot of these, and
Mm-hmm.
being in the position I am, active ideology and that severity of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for different methods to help me. And some people will do natural medicines, psilocybin,
Yeah.
ayahuasca, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And those are great. But some people we still have those stigmas around it, and they don't want to do that stuff. And they would, you know, because some of those walls have been built by our society, our culture, and our churches. And,
Mm-hmm.
these things are bad. And they've been proven over thousands of years that they work, and they're
Yeah.
powerful, and they
Yeah.
connect you with your spirit and your being.
Yeah.
But there's this stigma, especially in the Western world, against that stuff. So
Yeah.
tell
And
me
I,
about some of these therapies that don't involve that.
yeah, absolutely. But on the side note, ayahuasca is a magical thing that helped me to develop where I am today as well in a big way. I actually studied
Yes.
shamanic practices as well and studied with
Oh,
different shamans of how to work with this medicine as well. So it's a fascinating journey, but it's not for everyone.
right.
And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, just because I'm able to bring that to people without having to utilize those things because they may have certain contraindications to that. And so when we're looking at trauma, we have to understand the different components of that, just like we're talking, it's not just mental, right? Because if we experience something traumatic, let's say you're witnessing any experience, even if your parents are fighting, right? It's not just mental. We're like, okay, that's bad.
Right.
We have a physiological
Mm,
response to that because our neurons within the body always fire and wire whatever we experience. If it's something scary, we may have heart palpitation, we may have our stomach in a knot, right? There can be a lot of different ways in which our body is going through this experientially. But when, again, and the same comes from happy times, if we fall in love, right? It's not just mental. We're like, oh, everything's great. Your body going through this goosebumps. You have butterflies in your stomach. So we're not just mentally processing certain experiences, which is more about CBT, right? It's cognitive behavioral therapy, where we look how thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are interrelated. And we'll look at this cognitive triangle that connects all of these three and explains why we feel a certain way. It comes from our thoughts, right? And then we look where the thoughts are coming from, probably from beliefs that's been established, but how to get to those beliefs, right? Because certain things, if I'm learning that early on, and I have my parents as ultimate authority teaching me, they're gods, they're everything. That's going to be soaked in, and I will be afterwards functioning with this kind of programming underneath all that. But also, aside from those things we learn, that's when we experience trauma. And there's a very big catch in this, because we have this, we're going to call it top brain and the bottom brain. It's just simplistically put,
no,
right?
I get it. I understand.
So the top brain is the one we assess situation, we analyze, we process things, make a decision. But underneath all that, those experiential component of all of the things that we've been experiencing and how they fire and wire together, creating those neural connections, through which afterwards we begin to look at the world with. However, we have no access to the bottom brain from the top brain. There's no logic. There's can be absolutely no access. We may not even know why we feel a certain way when we receive a certain trigger. Why do I get all emotional? While the trigger is not actually something very big or something very intense. And yet I still take it so seriously, even though in my mind, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But no, because underneath all that, I'm functioning from this programming that's been subconsciously, so to say, encoded into my system. And so how we use EMDR with that. So let's say, if I can bring an example, it's like very easy to kind of observe, right? So let's say there's a girl 2 years old and she sees her parents fighting one day, right? She was a happy kid, everything's good. And then one day she sees them fighting. The father has a knife and he's attacking the mom. She has this reaction, right? 2 years old. How can you process this mentally? You don't have the capacity yet. Your brain is not developed fully, right? So you experience this with all of the different sensations and emotions. And underneath that thing, you have a belief that's been encoded. Maybe I'm not safe, or people I love can't be trusted, or some other. Maybe she thinks that she's responsible for that, how often kids get that encoded into themselves. And so when that kind of neural connection is formed, I begin to look at life with this kind of lens. And so I'm going to school, for instance, and I'm functioning not from this part, I'm going to have the connections now. I'm looking at, okay, I can't be unsafe here, so somebody can harm me if the most important people in my life showed me this kind of example, right? And when what we focus on expands, so of course kids will go through certain experiences with bullying, maybe lost friendships, maybe some other things, right? That will continue to reaffirm that neural network inside of ourselves, right? So we get through life.
Well, and we look for those affirmations also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we focus on that. We're already not in the plane of opportunity. We're already deviated from that. So now we have a conditioning internally, but we have no access to that. Because I was 2. How can I possibly have access to say, okay, that's just one moment. My parents were in a good mood. I'm not going to do that, because children, they're not able to yet, right? So they get that freeze physiology along with this neural programming. Okay, she grows up, this girl, and she goes through life. She has other networks. Maybe she graduated well, she got a great job. And then she's with her husband in 30s, 40s. And then her husband, beautiful marriage, he's telling her about work experience. He's making food and using something. He's turning to her with a knife, right? Because he's cooking. It's like, I don't know what this manager was talking about. And suddenly she's going into a panic attack. There is 911 is called. They're taken to the hospital. They're like, what happened? It's like, nothing happened. I don't know. Everything was so great. But her system perceived the same threat that a 2 years old person experienced. And she gets a response not based on the top brain, right? Not the kind of thinking brain, but the feeling brain. And she doesn't know why. But it's been encoded there for years, for decades, and we have no access to that. There's no logic. So anytime I get triggered, that 2-year-old version of self can show up and get scared again and re-experience that trauma. So EMDR and how it works. EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So when we go to bed, you know this state of sleep when we call REM sleep, where the eyes
Mm-hmm.
are moving very fast, right? So that's literally our part of the brain called hippocampus that's responsible for memory, is sorting out the memory from the day. Okay, this is good, this is friendship, this is, positive. But when we get something super intense and we're 2 years old, our brain does not know what to do with that. So it represses it somewhere else in our mind as well. So we had that freeze physiology, and we have as well this little compartment where that information is stored. That's why sometimes people don't even recall the experiences because they're out of our conscious awareness.
Yeah.
What we try to do with EMDR, we try to take the information. Let's say we may not know what happened early on. So we have either top-down approach when we take experiences now, let's say this panic attack that I have in my 30s, 40s, and going backwards, trying to understand
Right.
which experiences reaffirm the same emotions, sensations, and belief underneath. And once we're focusing on that, we begin to either move the eyes or use bilateral stimulation in order to begin activate the hippocampus to reprocess that memory. So it begins to break down that neural connection, the negative neural network that's been created for decades, and tries to reestablish another one more positive, called adaptive neural network, that actually can help the person to restore a different way of looking at things as well and remove that emotional response. But yeah, so with EMDR, pretty much we're trying to access the emotions, sensations, maybe from this current time, or maybe if we know that, okay, I've had that instance in the past, maybe I've had that trauma when I was growing up, right? So I can either start from there and see how other experiences later on kind of could have reinforced the same negative neural network, or I'm starting from this time when I'm, let's say, experienced this panic attack in my 30s, 40s, but I don't know where it came from. I can start from top down, meaning I'm going through experiences backwards and trying to see how I can access those earlier
Right.
memories or experiences that could have contributed to that.
Is there a way to go from the beginning forward?
If you remember it, yeah. If I know
Okay.
that I have clients who have been, let's say, molested by a grandfather, right? And they know that experience, maybe they have memory of that. We can definitely start there. But before that, again, we have to
How do you
create a one.
rewire that? That's like I don't have the memories, but
Mhm.
I go backwards to find the root. How do
Right.
you rewire something that is probably so prevalent in their memory and the forefront of their mind? It's something that is recalled in
You
that
mean like
experience.
if you don't remember the first experience, but you have certain things happening in this present time?
So, like for me, I react to life
Mm-hmm.
with anger, rage, all the walls that I built for protection.
Okay.
Being molested, being whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
built these walls and I react to those triggers. I know where they're coming from. I know the root of it.
Okay.
Um, Now I do, but it's taken me a long time to get to that root.
Yes.
Actively seeking that root. Like I've put a lot of work in on my own for myself
Yes.
because most people didn't understand the way I thought. I knew more about myself than somebody else did. I'm like, I've already looked at that. I already know that. And that's in psychology. Like I was in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different therapists. So I was
Mm-hmm.
just ahead of the game, always
Yes.
ahead of the game. So there was never really any great help for me. And I actually talked to people the same thing. I've been through all these therapists. It's because we're so
Mm-hmm.
introspective and aware a lot of
Yeah.
times, even though we have these blank spots. So I guess my question is, because of those blank spots, I don't have these horrible memories. I have a horrible reaction
Okay.
to things that I don't understand.
Yes. And that's absolutely common as well. And so I would say starting down approach when you start, let's say you're taking an experience where you had that intensity emotionally, right? Something that triggered you. You
Hmm.
begin to explore that. Okay, what were emotions, sensations, and self-talk that you experienced when the situation happened, right?
Right.
So you begin exploring, and then you say, okay, what did that mean to you about yourself? And so you begin, okay, I'm unlovable, or I'm a failure, I'm unimportant, I'm not good enough, I have to be responsible for everything, I'm incompetent. There can be so many different things, but we're not trying to understand it from this far. Just what was the meaning of this current situation? And then we'll begin to utilize the more we get to that point, right? For instance, okay, for example, it's just an example, right? Let's say
Yeah.
I'm unlovable and unimportant. Okay, so tell me, go backwards a couple of years and say, when did you experience the same negative belief with the
Right.
same emotions, sensations, and self-talk? Oh,
Right.
okay, that was a situation with a friend. Maybe 10 years ago, okay, there was a situation with my partner. Maybe another, like, and what's the touchstone memory? Meaning, what's the very first experience that you
Right.
can recall? We just look at what you can recall. And then we start with the first experience that you want to process. We take the measurements. There is a preparation that goes with that. We're not just jumping into it. It takes a couple of sessions to get to know your target sequence plan. We call it those events that kind of reaffirms the same negative neural network, right? Will look at the negative belief underneath that and your reaction of your system to it, emotions, sensations, and whatever comes with that. And then we begin the stimulation. The stimulation is just like I've said, when we have that REM sleep and our hippocampus is activated and it's moving things around, our eyes are moving. We try to create the same thing, activating the hippocampus to begin to break that down. So we're focusing on those sensations, emotions. Maybe you have a spot, let's say, well, where do you feel that in your body? And this anger, let's say, or this kind of frustration or, discomfort. You say, well, I feel it in my chest right now. I'm talking and like my heart begins to beat faster, right? Something, I feel the pressure. Okay. And we begin the stimulation. It can be different forms. It can be faster or longer. It can be shorter in kind of a time duration. But then we stop and we take your measurement again. How do you feel right now? What do you notice, right? And you may say, well, I just seen a glimpse of something that maybe even unrelated to what we're processing.
Right.
But all of that is critically important. It's not about what feedback I provide. It's what you give me. And we start taking notes on everything you begin to notice, because through this kind of processing, through eye movement or bilateral stimulation, your brain begins to open up. It begins to kind of shed a layer at a time for us to begin to notice other things that we can focus on that. And when you say, let's say, maybe I've noticed more anger, right? Because again, we know that certain information has been repressed. So the moment we begin that stimulation, we can actually get that increase in intensity of what we're experiencing. And that's great. And say, okay, go with that. And we continue that stimulation, either eye movement or bilateral stimulation. And we go with that until you begin to notice decrease in that, we call it subjective units of distress. Let's say on a scale from 0 to 10, how distressing or disturbing it is for you now. Let's say we started with 9 out of 10. It was very distressing. Maybe it went afterwards to 10 out of 10. But then it's like, oh, it's 6 out of 10. Maybe it's 5 out of 10. So it begins to subside. And we need to, or the ideal way is to bring it down to 1 or a 0. 0 can be rare, especially if there is more targets on our sequence that created that neural network that may be important to kind of break down as well in the future.
So then, all great stuff. There's a compounding effect that I found.
Mm-hmm.
Through this trauma. I've created my own trauma and then created a ton of shame behind it. That shame is the compounding effect of not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, being abused, blah, 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 blah. That's the end of story. But I believe that shame for me also created the rage. So it was not just because when you're sexually abused, there's shame behind it and you think you have fault, and then you start questioning everything about yourself. And I didn't understand this until recently. I didn't understand the amount of shame that I carry. I thought I was okay. It's there is storage in our body. So my question would be, how do we break the code? How does that go from this memory that compounded, that snowballed in effect, into the shame, into my own reaction to life, and then I've created damage and I've created these things, and I've now responsible for this thing that happened, even though it was as a boy. I am now responsible at some point for the things that I created out of that. Yeah. And how do you get people because what is the end goal? It would be to break that code, right?
Yes.
How do you sustain that? How does that become long term?
Well, number one, that's why we get the adaptive neural network. And you just answered your own question. Your shame came from, I'm responsible for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the belief we're going to be working on. And how do I want to say? Let's say, for instance, it can be another belief. What do you want to believe about yourself through that situation? I know I'm innocent and I'm healing regardless, or I know I did my best even when feeling responsible for something, or I did, we have to create a positive adaptive neural network that you
Mm-hmm.
want to establish on top of that. And that begins to rewire the code. Sometimes it's just breaking down first, because that may take, again, if there's a lot of intensity and a lot of things, kind of this the whole system, then it may take a little more, just one session to start feeling the disturbance going down. It depends on the severity, on how many kind of experiences reaffirm that neural network. So it's going to be personalized for everybody. I have certain clients who would process for I've had molestation. It took 4 or 5 sessions for the person to actually start going down on a sub scale, right? Because again, it's not that easy. There's a lot of things, like you've said, there's a lot of aspects of that
Mm-hmm.
situation, and we'll process one at a time. Let's say one time we're processing, okay, I'm responsible for that. We're trying to bring that down. And it's going to naturally, the only thing our brain wants is to heal. So we have to trust our system too to go through that. Just like we trust our processes. If we get a cut, we trust that it's going to heal. I'm not sitting there saying, okay, what if that wound is never going to heal? We have natural capacity to heal. And that's how we have to trust our system also to lead us through this healing process, even when it comes to the brain. And taking every aspect of that situation and see, after a session, you'll probably gain some new insights about that, because when you take yourself out of that box, you suddenly begin to see other interpretations or other perspectives, or just a little insight into that as well. But it's not just a mental process, it's experiential process. And that's what's important about it, that you will feel differently. For me,
Right.
when I was going through my own, I actually went and I'm like, oh my God, now, I know the root cause of it for me. And I was, 34. I was like, that's insane that I finally figured out why. And I always felt like, why was I different? And I actually spoke to my best friend about it. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with that. I'm like, I'm doing all of this. I'm very self-introspective. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going in and I'm constantly trying to figure out what's happening and be a better person. But I was like, there's something off about me and I don't know what. I'm like, there's something, it's different how I experience life from what people are sharing. I'm like, I just don't feel that I can relate to a lot of things. I'm like, what's wrong with me? And when I figured out what was wrong, because the moment you start processing anything, you will start getting new insights and new information that can help you proceed with your healing process. And so
Yeah.
after going through that as well for myself, to me, it was like unlocking within my body. You feel it again somatically. And that's another type of therapy, right? Is to become more aware of your inner system, what's going on internally in your body. Because again, just like that freeze physiology, just like you've said, the shame is stored in there, of course. Because if you feel shame, there are probably a lot of sensations that go along with that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, again, maybe we're putting our shoulders, inwards.
Yeah.
Maybe we feel pressure in our chest, maybe the heartbeats, whatever that can be. Maybe it's the stomach, right? So it can be a lot of places in our body. And we can even address that in that way as well. Somatic therapy can be a very powerful tool to learn how to move and shift your physiology. But I feel like those two together work just wonders, and how they can
Really.
help people.
Wow. That's amazing. So how long have you been doing this?
Actually, not that long. I started since last year, but I've went full on with EMDR because I love it so much, and I'm doing that with almost all of my clients right now, and it's just an amazing process.
Do you, getting into this, do you have statistics on like success rate with EMDR?
Oh
Do we
yeah,
have enough information? I don't know much about it.
oh yeah, it's a very effective strategy, and
Is it
again, yeah,
long term?
long term, it's breaking down that connection. It helps you not to get the same kind of intensity about the same event.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it works on.
And have you seen that allow people to process the difficulty that they've
Yeah.
navigated so poorly in the past?
Absolutely. Even certain clients report getting rid of certain pains that they have for years or decades at a time. They're
Really?
like, oh my God, I had a client who, after the session, he said, oh my God, he's like, just the pain in my back is gone now. He's like, I've had this pain for years.
Yeah.
And afterwards, he was reporting that the pain didn't return back. So I'm
Wow.
taking that in. I mean, that's a beautiful, but again, you have to be willing to go through that. I know a lot of times we get stuck in our psyche as well. Like, I know it's not going to work. If you believe in that, you probably set yourself up for not having this to work for you. So I feel like having an open mind and trying all that you can, and also looking for solutions rather than being, let's say, justified to have certain feelings, because I know certain people get stuck in their stories.
So, how have you seen this work effectively with suicide ideation? So, like, there's, I talk to so many people, and there's so many people that are tormented, not just, oh, I shouldn't be here, I don't belong, or there's this extreme level that I talk to with people, and they're in the same boat as I am with this extremity of it's torment. How
Yes,
have
of
you
course.
seen that? Has that alone, that type of therapy, been able to transfer or transform somebody's thought process out of that?
Yes, well, to start with, number one, we're not just looking at this one aspect of that, because
Right.
again, we have so many different parts of our being,
Mm-hmm.
including many different areas of life too. Let's say I cannot just go for therapy and try to address that while I am in abusive relationship, for instance. Right? So there are a lot of things that we may need to shift in our life in order to create for ourselves this optimum, healthy living space, right? Our life circumstances, a lot of different things that we can and need to address alongside with doing this work. And self-care strategies, you cannot just heal that, but then not to have a routine, a new routine to continue to support yourself and continue moving forward. Because yes, this can be a solution. However, you have to also not to get back into the same traps you've been in the past, because most often our life circumstances of that nature can also lead us to make decisions that are probably not the best for ourselves, right? Or our highest good.
So
So I
somebody like me I'm fortunate right now. I did a psilocybin therapy. I'm able to get out of bed every day. For many, 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 many years, it debilitated me. My anger debilitated me. It made me depressed. It invoked so many different emotions in me. Everything that ever happened just is all built up in one explosion all the time.
Mhm.
And that creates depression, and then that creates more anger because you're angry, and there's a snowball effect that happened.
Yeah.
Now my anger is motivating me to do something about it. I
Mhm.
couldn't get there. My belief in psilocybin was like, I have no reference point for my kid for being good or having good memory.
Mhm.
So it's not going to work. I give it 1% chance, 99% chance it doesn't work, 99% chance in 2 days I take my life.
Mhm.
It worked. Now,
Mhm.
am I healed? Am I better? No, I've got it. I'm dealing with this in a different way now. That's not, it's not part of my being, but it's still trying to hold on. And I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
It's the unfolding of the spiritual side of this in me is the best
Mhm.
way I can take it or tell you that.
Yeah.
Because I understand that my true being, my true nature, the very core of who I am is beautiful.
Mhm.
And but to act that out on a regular basis when I've had such an adverse reaction to life. And
Mhm.
I would tell you that my sister told me my temper tantrum started at 6. I don't remember. I thought they were at 10. That's the first one I remember. I still have temper tantrums. That's my rage, period.
Yeah.
It never stopped. That
Yeah.
protective nature that's stored in my body has never stopped. I know who I am. I know it. I know my core. This storage, and it's not that it's not me. I'm still reacting to life the same way.
Yeah.
I don't. How do you break the code?
Well,
Because
again,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
what you say again right now, right? I know who I am. You're talking with
Yeah,
this part.
yeah,
What's reacting is not this part. This part is
right,
reacting,
right.
right? It's that bottom brain that begins to activate. And what is that bottom brain? It's accumulation of all of the versions
Mm-hmm.
of self that have been in 6 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. So how well we can negotiate from this part to the 6-year-old self to convince them that they're safe and they're okay. It's a very hard process. So, and it works only if we begin, not only, but it can work much faster if we begin to address the physiology of what's going on. And even exploring physiology of how do I feel when I'm angry? How do I experience that? Why, right? And you begin to go in and try to work with that physiology as well. There are a lot of approaches. And again, it's a very flowy kind of therapy, which goes as like, it's not something specific. Okay, you do that. Yeah, there are ways of how do we get inside and what do we look for and how we do attachment repair, how we do, again, processing of that freeze physiology, maybe stored energy somewhere. So there can be a lot of different aspects of what you can do with that. But I feel like starting from this point and going backwards will be the way to go. Let's say if you're coming, you say, okay, I felt this intense anger when I spoke to my friend. Okay, so describe that. What emotion sensations aside from that did you have? Well, I felt this. Okay, what self-talk did you have? Why did you start experiencing this? Well, I thought that was so dumb that he's saying that, or I didn't feel like he understands me at all. Okay, all right, so we're getting to that underneath belief about what's going on. Okay, I feel misunderstood. That means maybe I feel alone, maybe I feel vulnerable, I feel abandoned. There can be a lot of different stories that are encoding already created, and that's been, again, inside of our physiology.
Right.
And then we begin to identify, okay, so all of that, let's say, and we identify that negative belief. Okay, let's look 5 years before, right? And tell me, when did you experience the same kind of belief and the same emotions and sensations? Okay, well, I've been at work and that happened, or I've been, with my spouse or with my partner and this happened, right? And then we go backwards and, okay, what about 5 years before that? Well, I can recall this, for instance, since you are very attuned to what's going on internally, right? You need to figure out those events that co-created the same kind of intensity within you. So we begin to be aware of the neural network that's been created through a lot of different things. And then we'll go backwards to remember any kind of situations with your parents or your siblings. Well, this happened and I felt the same way. Okay. What's the first memory you remember, the touchstone memory? Then you begin to talk about that if you can recall, whatever you can recall, right? Because afterwards, when you start processing, for now, but then again, our brain does not stop processing after we stop the session. It takes a few days and we can experience certain things. We call it mental surgery because you literally go through something that by the end of the session, when you process, you begin to just yawn, you begin to feel really tired, you may need some water, because your body is breaking down physiological connections, it's breaking down those neural connections. So, and then it continues to process for the next couple of days for some time. And you may feel out of sorts because your structure, your system just being disorganized again. And now it needs to reorganize back into this adaptive functioning. So it takes, you may be a little more angry than not for the next couple of days or feel a little out of place. But then in a few days after that, and also you can see some dreams too, that can hold a lot of keys also to what we need to process next. And then after that, you're like, wow, maybe similar situation happens. You're like, I actually don't have the same reaction to it. Actually, something just shifted and I see the situation a little different way. Maybe there's better self-confidence. Maybe there's a better level of self-esteem or self-love that you have. Like, you know what? I'm not going to react to this. So we begin to utilize that as a choice and see it in a different perspective. But it may take the same experience, it may take a few sessions to process, depends on the severity or the intensity of that neural network.
Do you do ketamine therapy at all?
It's funny you ask because I'm going through a training right now.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, it's a beautiful, I actually integrated people going through ketamine therapy just because it's a very similar process in nature to ayahuasca. That's why it was an easy way for me to navigate that, because I'm attuned to that part of myself and helping people to navigate those experiences that can be very different from the life's journey. And I love that. So yes, I definitely say, especially together, ketamine and EMDR works magic.
Does it?
Yeah.
I'm curious. I think I'm too smart for my own good a lot of times, and my pride and ego get the best of me a lot. It doesn't allow me to kneel to or surrender to that reactive, that instant anger or instant reaction. I'm so sorry. How I'm trying to navigate my own stuff but I'm also sharing that with the world, because I think it's important.
Yeah.
And that's probably kind of the rawness of what I'm doing. I don't necessarily want counsel from somebody, or even from like in an interview. But what would you say to somebody? Because there is this element of realization and connecting the brain with the mind, and the mind being this part of it, is the spirit part of it.
Yes.
How do you navigate? I have so many questions. Sorry. So we're going to jump in. Yeah, I know. Tell me a little bit about sound therapy, and how that, because you're seeing more and more of that certain megahertz, I think it's, or just maybe it's hertz, that
Yes.
frequencies that
Yes.
help people connect with. Well, you see it more in like, I want to say meditative practices or Buddhist practices, shamanistic practices about the chakras and stuff like that. You see that more, but there's validity to it even in your own spiritual life. It's not confined to one spiritual aspect, because this has to do with your body, your mind, your healing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, with pleasure, because I love this practice so much. And I actually did that not just for community kind of people, but also in rehabs. I actually was working with that in detox, where again, people are detoxing from opiates and other substances. And the results were incredible for certain people. And I'll explain why. So everything in our universe vibrates. You're on this journey too. You absolutely are aware of it. Every single cell has a vibration. Just like, when we see someone walking in and they don't necessarily look different from other people, or there's nothing special, but you may either be super drawn to them or the opposite. You can be repelled by them, right? We're energetic beings. So we read the energy before we read anything else. And then we try to find cues in material world in a way, right? How the
Right.
person talks, how they look at me, micro expressions. There's a lot of kind of components of that. So when we have this, we should have, or it's important for us to have this coherent state of being, right? That's what meditation affords, and sound healing can afford to, but I'll get to it. If something in our life is going wrong, let's say if I have, again, reaction to something, whether it's a mental, maybe it's a physical, maybe I have a pain in my body right now, maybe I have a headache, our overall vibration becomes incoherent, meaning that we're not just radiating this beautiful, very good kind of positive vibe, right? We call it vibes.
Right.
It's actually frequencies that we radiate as well. So what does sound healing do? When the sound, and I like to do it in actually closed rooms, because the sound that bounces off the wall and it has a special frequency that we already spoke about, it begins to penetrate everything on its way. So it can shift the vibration of the body that may be incoherent, right? That may be, let's say we have a headache and I feel a headache, right? And then with the sound healing, it can completely kind of take away the energetic, the frequency component of it, which in turn can also get rid of the headache. I've had people who report that they had a pain in their back and the pain was gone, pain in the shoulder and the pain was gone. Some people who haven't slept in detox, haven't slept for days, were snoring throughout the whole session because they got that peace on the energetic level, on the vibrational level. So it can be very profound practice to kind of shift away and move that energy that's been kind of radiating out of the source spot or out of the place that we experience some sort of distress or pain.
Sure.
So it can work magic for people. But also, I also like to remind everybody that you got to believe in what you're doing. Because again, if you have a belief that's like, I'm going there, it's not going to work, right? That can be a big obstacle to receiving the help you want to get from that. So I feel like understanding that any type of trauma we're dealing with, there are a lot of steps to get the healing we need. First, again, becoming aware, right? For instance, for you, you're hyper aware of everything that's happening within you. But some people do not. They can be going, I'm fine. And nothing is, they may not even accept trauma as a concept, and that's fine. because guess what? Everybody is entitled to their opinion and their decision, even bad decisions, right? We all have to get and go through this journey, making the way or taking those steps that we think are important for us. And I can absolutely respect every single person and their own readiness for change. But
Right.
then we have to become willing to let something go, because we're also become addicted to the stories we tell ourselves, and to the same type of chemical cocktail that we have in our brain. If I don't have dopamine and serotonin for decades, the body will be rebelling against me having different practices that increase that. It's like, no, that doesn't sound like you at all. That doesn't look like us. Look, there's this misfortune and this situation. Let's start tomorrow, because this positive affirmations or whatever you're doing is not really working well. We need to go back to uncomfortable comfort. We need to get back to that state, right? Because we are creatures of habits, and habits even on the chemistry of our brain kind of level. So we have to realize that it will be uncomfortable. It will take time. Healing is not linear. It's going to jump up and out, right? It's going to be always moving. And also, we're not looking for the end goal. Okay, I feel healed. Because tomorrow, some bad person will cut me off in the street. Some other person is going to say something to me that, okay, again, I will think bad about myself, right? So I feel like becoming more aware and including our practices that help us heal, whatever that is, with regularity. We have to make sure that just like we shower every day, brush our teeth every day, go to work every day. Well, I'm hoping that everybody brushes their teeth every day, right?
No, it doesn't happen, especially in this area. It's like, I can show you a video I did not long ago. I'm like, this is what depression looks like. It's ugly.
Yeah, I know.
Especially when you're isolated. It's an ugly, ugly place. And to move from that is very, very difficult.
Yes, of course.
And I talked with this about with this very thing with a gentleman that experiences the same thing. There's this weight that happens that it's always there. It's always present, and nobody understands it. They think you're lazy, and it's like no, this is the weight of depression and the heaviness of life. And I don't know why it's this way, but I always feel this way. And I always feel that every time I get out of bed. Fortunately, the psilocybin broke down my walls. I am now motivated. Do I still have some of the same reactions? Sure. Yeah. Do I understand that I don't have to live like that now? Yes. Do I understand how to fully navigate out of it? No. But am I actively looking for those answers? And I can run towards those now. They do not debilitate me. It's like serious motivation to get up, move, and say, I know what it is to be okay. I know what it is to actually have peace, motivation, goals, purpose. Like, now I fully understand this. I know for the first time in my life, I understand why people want to live. Never understood that in my prior life. And I say prior life because I am actively squeezing out of that. I'm no longer the victim, even though my language would indicate that there's something holding on that I know doesn't have room to stay anymore. That has no place to harbor anymore. I just don't know how to peel off from that. So there's the language is one thing that is huge towards ourselves. I fully understand that now. That the way I speak to myself, the way I tell my story to other people, whether that be a victim or, it sounds like everything that you're doing is to help people change their perspective on who they are so they can move through the world in a way that involves basically, and what also is accompanied with that is forgiveness of self, of other people, grace of self and other people, and then understanding that those triggers, those things, I'm not being molested anymore. I'm not being beaten anymore. I'm not being yelled at anymore. The only one yelling at me is me. The only one beating me up is me. And I'm responsible for that. So I'm also responsible for changing my language towards myself and changing my perspective towards myself and other people. I'm also responsible for this anger that's visiting me right now. And so I've put actions into place, that I'm going to go shed this. And my next few months will be that journey. And I'll record that journey. And there's no possible way that I will come back unchanged. I will be an absolutely different man. Absolutely. And it has, I've shed myself of drinking every day. So my mind has ability to do something new. I'm exercising now every day. Even at, I started with, 20 counter push-ups. Now I'm at 30 girl push-ups twice a day. And I'll be up to 50 to 100 push-ups by the time, the journey's already started, but when I start my journey, I'll be physically, mentally, and emotionally capable of going on this journey because I've put things in place and instituted things in my own life that allow me to succeed in that. And I think it will drastically affect how the podcast is perceived and by me, and because I get to, although I have a great perception of it right now, it will improve for other people. And my gifts that I'm hindered in a way of using. I heard this beautiful thing. Our gifts are not our own. They're for other people. Fortunately, I get to learn from my gifts by giving them away. That's the beautiful caveat to that. So I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot right now. There's another therapy that I'm really fascinated with that you're doing is light therapy. What does that look like? So, let me go back a little bit. Hold on. Let's go before we go there. Cause I wanted to tell you this. I heard a doctor the other day. It was on TikTok or something. He's famous on the platforms. I can't remember his name. That's how famous he is. But he was saying, we're made up of 70% water. Why don't, when you cut into somebody, why don't we leak water? And he's like, it's congealed or whatever. I don't know what he said, but anyway, he was saying, we've found that you've seen these experiments where they put sand on a speaker and it forms this formation. Well, water does the same thing. If you put vibration to it, it forms this thing. And what he says, we're starting to find that sound therapy is doing exactly what you're saying. Is it's reforming basically the cellular makeup of your water makeup, and that's what it's and that's how effective sound is. Is it's actually making this 70% water in our bodies reform the image that's been imprinted on our bodies.
Yes,
does that make sense? Am I saying that fairly? Okay.
Yeah, and the experiments with also I always mess up his name, so I'm not going to say it, but the scientist who was working with playing music for water and then freezing it and seeing the shapes, right? Naruto, but I don't remember exactly the name right now. So he was saying that, and imagine if we're made of water and we're talking negatively to ourselves, what does it do to our body in general? Our bodies, they don't respond well. I mean, there are experiments about plants, how plants read your intentions if you want to hurt it, or they're from 1960s, nobody talks about it, and it's on YouTube. It's 10 minutes, you can watch. There's a variety of it. It's mind-blowing. I have a bunch of plants in my house because I love them so much, and I talk to them and they grow, and a lot of people begin to turn to that because it's true. Rice experiment, another one that's also on YouTube a lot. When they boil rice, the same, it gets that, and one talks nicely to it, another one they're not talking nicely to it, and they see that the good rice, the one that they talk nicely to, it didn't get spoiled at all. It's perfectly fine, even after 8 weeks of being in this little jar. And other ones are completely rotten. So I feel like just this alone got to give us some perspective. The same as the placebo effect. We don't give enough power to this phenomenon, and it's scientific proof, right?
I'll take it all day long. Yeah.
I know, right? So it's a belief about ourselves, about everything. And if we even, again, I don't usually kind of put together religion and spirituality, but even in the Bible, when they say that if you believe I can heal you, then I can.
Right.
Jesus says that to people, right? So we
Yeah.
don't even listen to what's been given through science, through religion, through different ways and different forms. And we then, it's all irrelevant. I'm a dumb thing. I'm so, we continue going with the old story. And trauma, it will always be a part of our history, but it doesn't have to be a part of my story. Or if it is a part of my story, then it's the inspiring part. Say, look, I've gone through this and I'm freaking here right now. You can do the same thing. I couldn't get out of bed normal,
Yeah.
right? And your story is just, I always was getting emotional because it's so inspiring what you went through and how you continue to fight. And I feel like if we find that strength and realize what we really are and what we possess internally, we can make those changes. But it starts again. Yes, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun.
Very.
It's going to be a terrible thing
Yeah.
to go through. But at the end,
That's the fear, I think. And a friend of mine says this. He's like, I don't think most people change because they're afraid of the outcome. They don't know the outcome. They are very, very comfortable with what they're in right now. I'm the dance with suicide is a beautiful dance because I know it. I understand the steps. I know all the steps. I know what I'm going to go through. Now, this is a little different. This peeling off that I'm going through right now is very, very different. But very exciting because I know it's not a part of me. And I understand that. It's a reaction that's trying to hold on to something that's old. And that story, that old story, still the same story, different narrative. And the narrative is I wouldn't be who I am or doing what I'm doing or putting out what I'm putting out without the full story, without the full story, without all of it, without,
I love it.
without all the loss and frustration and things that I created and my responsibility and other people's responsibility. I wouldn't be this without all of it. And now I don't have to hold on to the things that keep me in that old story.
Yeah. And I feel like when we get to a stage, there are different stages to healing, but I feel like one of the very important stages is the moment when we begin to be grateful for the things we struggled with before.
It's hard. It's not that I would choose to be molested again. It's that
obviously
it's made me the person that I am because I'm able to navigate it. That's where people get confused. I talked to this lady last night at an art show, and she's like, I'm just not there yet. I'm not there. But I don't know that she considered that her whole story has actually made her who she is. And that's the hard part is, well, why would I be thankful for that? Well, it's not being thankful for the act. It's being thankful that it's made you who you are and that you don't have to be somebody else. I don't have to deal with severe OCD. I don't have to deal with severe anxiety. I don't have to. And anxiety in and of itself, severe anxiety is horrible. It's debilitating. And, I experience a lot of these little things, and I'm privileged that I understand a lot of these little things so I can relate to people in a way that, thank God, I'm not fully blown with something that because it's really hard to navigate.
Of course. And some things there's no justification for. There's no you cannot put a positive experience, but you can put positive experience to it if you've learned what it gave you. And I feel like when we look backwards, and I say to anybody who has like a really, really bad story, right? The worse your story is, the worse the trauma, the bigger your mission. Because if you'll be able to get through that, your presence here on this planet can be something so powerful that if you don't realize it yet, this is not the end. You have to still keep fighting, keep going forward because you have a special, incredible, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it, because you have a special power that you have to uncover through this terrible things that happen to you, and you have to rise above it like a phoenix. I have a tattoo of a phoenix because we have that, and when we make it to that point, we understand everything begin to make sense. But yes, there is a way to that, and we just have to keep going and try new things and reprocessing how we think of that and what narrative we give to this experience. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. That's why, unfortunately, not everybody makes it to the end, which is actually good. If it's not good yet, it's not the end. We have to keep going forward because that belief that there's something for me, and not everything is happening to destroy me. It's not here to kill me, but to heal me.
Yes.
But it's also very hard if we get stuck in the negative narrative. And when it comes to anxiety too, when we understand what anxiety is, and that's you don't even need a lot of time to work on anxiety, to be honest. I feel like we always have that as this ghost or something elusive.
Right.
Anxiety is just one little part of our brain called amygdala, and I usually give a brain structure to my clients to explain that. It's just hyperactive because of the things you went through.
Right.
Yet it's lovingly trying to keep you on the edge and hyper alert because of what you went through. It's
Right.
working for, it thinks it's working for your highest good and it's helping you to be good. But in reality, it's just functioning in its own kind of thing. And it becomes larger in size and it becomes to be hyperactive. So we feel that all the time. So
Yep.
the only way to reprocess that is to face things that make you feel anxious, whatever that is, and navigating also sensations that you experience, learning to relax through it. There's one, so I'm actually going through a very beautiful training for trauma, another one, because I'm constantly going for some stuff. And they said, if you will take one thing out of this whole thing, is that you can't have PTSD symptoms in a relaxed body. If you have relaxed physiology, if you learn to really work with your system to relax it, you can't have any other symptoms. But
I believe that.
our bodies respond to everything. So we get this,
Yep.
constriction in every part or tension or thing. So we have to, it's again, that's why I'm saying it's not just mental. It's not just, neurons kind of connection that we have. It's not just physiology. It's all of that. And then even when we get, like you're saying, right, you got this breakthrough right now, when you have these beautiful changes, this is the time to start building very new habits that you will consistently use, that they will be helpful. And to know that they're helpful is to stay with them for a while. When you have your morning routine, night routine, physical routine, spiritual, emotional.
How would you recommend somebody do that? Because and I was going to ask you that earlier, and that was kind of the point earlier. But I get sidetracked in my own head. For somebody like me that couldn't get out of bed, that doesn't, like, I tried to go to the gym, I tried to create those things, I tried to lose weight, and it just doesn't work. There's this, that's what I was saying about that weight. There's this weight that just, when you're in active or consistent depression, it's even difficult to call the psychologist and say, I need help. Yeah. So what would, we talk about little wins. And I don't know how well people hold on to that, because I need big wins. I'm so far in the hole that I need big wins to at least give me some semblance of I'm going in the right direction. Because so often we take these little steps and we're flat on our face again. And I was like, well, that didn't work. That didn't work. That didn't work. Right, it never worked. So, for me, I had to go physically look at taking my life, physically dying because I couldn't take it anymore. Yeah. Fortunately, I had a lot of people step in my way unintentionally that prevented me from taking my life along the journey of getting psilocybin treatment. I don't believe I would have lived very much longer. I know I wouldn't have lived very much longer if it wasn't for that treatment. And even in my doubt, the psilocybin was like, no, there's work to do. I mean, there's a lot of spirituality and God in that path for me, and why I'm still sitting here. Because I believe as I leaned over the edge and I was free falling, God said, no, not today. Yeah, thank God. That's for me. That is not for everybody. My active struggle is actually with my God, with my belief system, because I'm so angry with it, because it failed me as a boy. If the thing that I saw, the beautiful example of God in Christ that I saw in my grandparents did not resonate in my life until, well, I know it's a very, very big part of me. I don't know how to write. I know that's the journey next, is to go reconcile that and to find my respect and my reverence for this thing that I rely on every day, that I find solace in, that I find pain in, that I find surrender in, that I find beauty and life in. My problem is I'm so ashamed of my reaction to God that it's snowballing on me. And I know that the words that I tell myself are not necessarily true, or what God or Christ would say to me. I don't care what you believe about God or Christ. Read the Bible and you'll find some beautiful, beautiful things that are that have lasted 2,000 years. I mean, these words are so profound in living life, period, that they've lasted that long. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It's beautiful wisdom. It's just like Buddhism, or if you're Muslim, that you find that solace and peace in that stuff, that there's profound wisdom in those words that are not being told today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're trying to reformulate it through, no offense, but through psychology and various other wisdoms. And people think they're aliens and bringing down wisdom and this whole spirit thing. It's like there's profound wisdom right in front of you in so many different ways that has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, the most I feel like profound wisdom is inside of ourselves, though, and that's what we forget because we turn to. Doesn't I have the saying sometimes, and it may offend certain people, but not everybody who can cite a Bible experienced God.
Right.
So we have to always pay attention to that, because people can hide behind the book and say, "Oh, well, this is it," and they are real wrong. Again, and when you said about shame in front of God, okay, is your God unconditional love?
Don't know. For other people, absolutely. Well, for other again, people, I see it all the time. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
For me, it's a belief system.
Right. But again, there is that, if it depends again which God we have, right? My God is unconditional love. So it doesn't matter what we ever do, we will be forgiven, because unconditional meaning there's no condition. When we condemn ourselves for being that, I feel like hell is life without God.
Yeah.
That's hell, right? For me, I don't know how people live with that kind of belief. Again, everybody's different, and I will gladly support even atheists, whatever. But there's wisdom that goes beyond religion, beyond spirituality. I mean, we're developing in our mother's womb for 9 months. Dr. Wayne Dyer, great teacher of mine, he talks about for 9 months in the mother's womb, nobody interferes with this process. Our moms do not create any liver sitting there. Okay, today I'm making a fingertip. Our doctors are not saying, okay, today I'm going to be doing a foot for this child. For 9 months, we trust completely this universal wisdom, the knowledge, everything out there, the consciousness, intelligence to create us exactly as we should come out. But then for some reason, we think that we know better afterwards. Like, yeah, great job. I'll take it from here.
Yeah.
Who said that? This God guides all of the trees and everything out there to in a perfect harmony. Everything is perfect, even when it's imperfect. In seeing that there's everything has a place to be, and there is a meaning behind, there's lesson. That's how we can navigate light and meet any type of challenges we get. And that's more of the logotherapy, right? It's finding it's more of the existential therapy, is looking at those things that can create different meaning for us, even through the worst experiences. And I feel like once we have that trust.
Meaning like symbolism?
Meaning like different meaning of my trauma, let's say. What was the meaning? Well, I've been a victim, or I've went through this, I rose above it, and now I'm helping other people who are going through the same thing to help save them, to help, to help them feel better, to navigate their own challenges at their own pace. Yes. At the same time, it's not always that people are ready to address that. And sometimes maybe you need a little more time, or maybe other things, like, again, maybe psilocybin therapy or something else. When you said as well about we need big wins, right? Even in this statement, when we say we need is something we can't live without, right? It's water, air, that's a need. Need is a survival.
Right.
Big wins is a want. Of course I want to have a big win. But if I don't have that big win yet, I'll be taking the small ones and acknowledging myself for even pushing myself through that.
Well, and that's the thing. It's my mentality is I need a big win to move forward,
right?
To prove to me that I'm going in the right direction. If I don't get that, well, it's easier to stay here.
Right, exactly. So that's narrative too.
Yeah, that's again. Maybe I didn't fully go through all that. Yes, I need to shift my focus. My narrative changes. The story doesn't change. The narrative on that story changes when I look at the little things, the little wins, the little things that build the big momentum.
Absolutely.
Because I can look at all the little negatives, and it only takes one little negative to derail that pursuit of the big win. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but why do we let them derail us?
Right.
Don't let them. If we focus on what we
Those are
focus on expands.
those are
Then
the triggers that prove the narrative is correct.
Yeah.
Is those little things. And also the opposite side of that is those little wins prove the narrative of you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. And we should definitely celebrate that, no matter how big that is or how small. If I was able to make my bed 7 days out of the week, I'm a rock star.
Right.
I'm doing terrific. Okay, what's next? Now I'm getting that into a habit. Okay, maybe I'll start small. And again, I think it's the opposite to be trying to get to the big thing.
Oh,
and
yeah, absolutely.
If we need to clean our apartment, right, through depression as well, we have this term behavioral activation. Of course, we don't want to do stuff. We'll have to do them anyway. And that's when we're kicking in different behavior, we may have different energy. There's this quote that I love a lot. We can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. We have to get a different mind. We have to try to seek that different things that will create different perspective, right? So I feel like if we pay attention to small things and schedule that for ourselves, okay, I have to clean my apartment, it's a mess. Okay, so on Monday, I'm going to do my nightstand, maybe one drawer of my nightstand. Then tomorrow, on Tuesday, I'm going to do my shelf on one shelf on my closet. The day after, I'm going to do just my window and my bathroom, right? But if you begin to do that, if you have small things that you set for yourself to accomplish, then when you accomplish them, you get what? Sense of accomplishment. Because I did it, even though it was small. And so working on saying, okay, let me be proud that I did it, because I couldn't do that for a month. And now I did it. So isn't that great? Okay, then I'm going to have a little more serotonin in my brain. Maybe not enough to say, okay, I'm good now, but it's still moving me there. And then in a week or two, if I continue to accomplish these little tasks every day, I will start noticing slight changes. And sometimes that's better than having that big leap. And we don't know how we got there, because we need to build a foundation. If I get better, and that's what I absolutely love, psilocybin, right? It's a great tool for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people. However, if I don't know how I got there and I don't process a lot of things, yes, it's rewiring you for sure, but then my habits can also take me backwards. So if I don't have steps that I take on a regular basis to ensure where I'm getting to, positive affirmations, gratitude practice, physical activity, there can be so many, prayer, right? Whatever you need to include, and just looking at different areas. Okay, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, all of that has to be a daily routine. I have to dedicate time to it
as well.
Big one, absolutely.
I almost missed that, but nutrition.
Oh my God, yes.
I started cooking for myself.
Hey.
I've always been a cook. Like I've always cooked for myself, but it's always been, I'm a good cook, just basics, because it was hard to do. Now I'm like, oh, I'm making chicken and noodle soup today, mashed potato, killing it, and or burritos, and with cilantro, because the only thing bad in that is the tortilla. I'm like, that's some good stuff.
That is some good stuff.
And I heard something that was really important, because I'm diabetic as well, so I don't heal very well. Is eating a salad before every meal. It coats the stomach and allows your microbiome to process that into the proper sugars the proper way, instead of mishandling our sugars. The greens actually help it process and create that lining in the stomach, so that biome can do what it's supposed to do. I thought that was really cool. So that's what I started instituting as well. I'm like, it can't hurt me by even if I'm adding greens to my diet, it can't hurt me. And I'm not a greens guy. I'm a, donuts and cookies kind of guy. But enjoying food more, and learning to respect myself more with what I have. Our food is not the best in this country right now, but respecting myself in ways that I never had before. Again, that's why the exercise, the yoga, the meditation, the nutrition is all instituted for one purpose, and that's so that I have the best opportunity to be the best I can be. So
absolutely. There's also chlorophyll too. The greens is actually extracted from. That's powerful.
I started taking that too.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great
because it helps with the lungs and breathing and
and digestive tract too. As well. It's for like it's good for the entire body, and it's just greens in the bottle, so it's a perfect thing. You're
My
absolutely right.
psychologist friend told me about that. You psychologists, you're pretty smart.
Therapist. I'm not
Therapist.
psychologist. You're giving me advanced degree I don't have, but
Oh, that's fine. I wouldn't
yes,
know any
mental
better.
health counselor.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a really good thing, as well as psyllium husk too. For those people who don't eat a lot of vegetables, psyllium husk can be a really good thing to help. It's like instead of salads kind of thing that helps you digest properly and also get some
Psyllium
nutritional.
husk.
Yeah, psyllium husk.
Okay.
It's
Cool.
cheap. You can buy it on Amazon. It's a really good addition.
Yeah.
Again, I would always recommend consulting with medical professionals,
Absolutely.
nutritionists if you want, but it's not a damaging thing. It's actually a really good,
Well, if you're
support
on
for our
medications,
system.
I'm off all my medications. I weaned myself off a couple of years ago. I was like, I'm done doing that.
Awesome.
And then, that led me into, I was like, I'm going to be highly suicidal. And I sure was. But it also allowed me to navigate and feel. And, I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. I just know my mind and I know where I was headed. And I've done so much internal work that I knew all my risks, and it wasn't anybody else's responsibility but mine. And so I just became responsible for my life. Even if I was going to go take it, it was my responsibility. It became an altruistic venture, and still is, in a way. That's interesting because I've mentioned this before, but I have a friend who thinks that taking your life is one of the most altruistic things we have. And now that I'm talking to you, I'm like, actually living might be the most altruistic thing that you have. Choosing to live.
Yeah,
and choosing to live in a way that gives you life and gives other people life.
Oh, that's beautiful for sure.
Interesting.
That's beautiful perspective.
Perspective
Amazing.
changes.
Yeah. Oh, it's a journey. It's crazy but beautiful. We just have to roll with it and work on understanding again. We're valid in everything we experience, but is it serving me or not? That's the question. If it's not serving me well at this time, I gotta look for other options. And one of the worst things I hear is, I've tried everything. No, you haven't.
All right. You haven't
tried everything. You gotta, there's so many things we gotta explore together. And I love those people who give it everything. And if you give it everything and you really push forward and you look for other solutions, you will get the result. But yeah, it's far from easy. But again, if it's that hard, that means there's something so big for you ahead of you. You just have to keep going and, keep working on it. I can't say keep trying, because trying to just doing it. You have to keep doing it and it's going to show a result.
Well, it's no different of creating the positive habit than the negative habit that I'm already in. I'm practicing my negative habit. Why not transfer that energy into the positive? And it is simple stuff. It is, I don't like, it's not like I do, well, you have to do 30 minutes of meditation. You have to do 30 minutes of yoga. No, I do 10 minutes of yoga to get warmed up in the day. I do the minimum 5 minutes of meditation and see where it goes, because that's about how long it takes me to calm down enough. And I intentionally make at least one meal a day, but I'm always, I never beat myself up for not accomplishing a goal. I always give myself grace in that, because that's the motivation to do it more in the next time.
Yes.
If I don't have time, or if I get busy, it's like yesterday I didn't get exercise and I didn't get to do, and I went out and ate out at a restaurant, and that's okay, because today I'm motivated to do it the way I want to do it. Not because I have to do it, but because I want to invest in myself. So, it's again, we're back again to that grace, forgiveness, and allowance of being who you are, so that you can move past these really difficult things. Even with my anger, I've got to give myself a lot of grace that that's not who I am. And what is actually the goal? Well, it's sitting on my floor over here, being prepared. And that's my reminder that the journey starts now to eradicate myself of this thing that haunts me. Will it be fully gone? No, I just need to learn how to hold hands with it in a way that it doesn't, climb on my back and debilitate me. So
Yeah.
there's this thing where I have this language. I'm going to go eradicate this anger. No, I know that anger is part of my being and part of our natural makeup as human beings. Mine is just extreme, and I need to go in a sense go subdue it. But it'll never fully be subdued, and I don't want it to be, because I need to learn how to house with this thing and be friends with the very thing that has haunted and tormented me and wanted to take my life all this time. And it's me becoming more, it's not even control. That's the caveat. We think we're going to control some. It's allowing it.
Surrendering into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you even know how powerful you are. Everything you're seeing, I'm like, I love this guy. I just love you so much. What you've done in your life is exceptional, and it's so inspiring. Everything you say about your journey is just so powerful. And there's so much ahead of you that you can't even, it's amazing. So thank you even for, sharing all of this. And,
I see it as so minimal. Like my insight into it is like, and that's the shame, I think, behind everything that I am. And I realized I don't have the faith of a mustard seed, and I don't have the reverence and the kindness that for my faith that I think I do. And that's kind of the beautiful thing. And as I talk about it, I'm a huge baby. I'd probably look like a warrior that cries all the time. Cry baby.
what's
Yeah.
wrong with that? Crying is
Nothing.
natural. We're given that.
Absolutely
I
nothing.
love to have a good bowling session when I'm just like out of there and going through my motions.
Honestly, I had one before we got on. I'm still glazed over from it. It's because of what I'm going through. And I know it's the process in me breaking down this prideful part of who I am, in a way, having that ego death again. And I know how I'm going to do it without all the stuff and all the, like psilocybin or alcohol or weed or whatever, or pills or whatever that may be. I just don't have to do that anymore. I can rely on the very nature of who I am to be strong. And I'm going to go prove it to myself. And I'm going to go show myself what I'm capable of, because I don't believe it. And I don't believe in myself, but I know deep in my core. I don't, not yet, but I do know. I never understood this. I didn't know that I had the capability. I now know I have the capability. And that's why I'm able to stand up to myself and do something different. Wow, it's interesting that I said that. I'm going to go stand up to myself.
Yes, please.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting.
And also checking, sometimes I feel like also we get into, because everything we say is an affirmation, right? So even, and you know how if you put the word spelling, right? When we're spelling words, we put spell. If we take ing away, we put spell on everything. So everything we say, right, is very important, like we spoke before about. So if I say, well, I'm this and I'm that, and right now I'm stuck and I don't believe in that, I'm learning to believe in that, because that's the process. Maybe I'm not there yet. You know how I always, when I talk about affirmations with people, I'm like, of course, when people say they don't work, of course they're not working all the time. Why? Because if I didn't love myself for decades at a time, and then I'm standing in front of the mirror, I'm like, I love myself, and then my reflection back is like, who are you kidding? Like, who are you trying to tell that? That's not true. I don't feel that, right? Because to change how we feel, we have to change our physiology. But what can I say is, I'm learning to love myself, or I'm open to loving myself more. That's why I'm doing that. So I'm taking steps towards doing that. But the affirmation has to be tweaked for us to be able to believe in that, the system. And then the system is like, okay, yeah, well, you're doing something different. So maybe you are open to that now, right?
Right.
So it begins to sink in very slowly. And after a few months of that, I can say, okay, every day I love myself a little more.
Yep.
Or every day I'm getting, my mentor actually in the past told me, every day in many ways I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day in many ways I'm getting better and better. Yep. And if I repeat that, that's a believable thing, because you can say right now you can believe in that, right? Because you are getting better and better and stronger and stronger. If I always continue to say that, that's going to continue to create a different physiological response. and strengthen the positive neural connections that we just spoke about earlier, right?
Right.
So everything is kind of interconnected, interrelated. And I feel like becoming more intentional with what I say daily, right? What's my, not just inner self-talk, but outer talk, right? When I present something or I say a certain thing about my conditions right now, I feel like we got to learn to be more intentional. And again, it's never going to be 100%. But the more I practice being intentional, the better I will be able to create that talk that I have right now. That conversation will be different. And everything I say will start creating my future. And it's all kind of a one bowl of experiences afterwards.
Yeah. How you present yourself to yourself you'll present yourself to the world. That's interesting. I love that. One of the things, and maybe that you're actually touching on it as you speak, I kind of have this theory that I've been working on that I believe, honestly, and that's and it's probably not mine. It's probably not a new thought, but it's something that I've considered, and I've probably heard it somewhere and just processed it and now I'm putting it out, is that first you have to recognize or realize, then you have to believe, and then you have to know. And knowing is when you enter into the very nature of who you are. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. Now I believe that I'm actually instituting that belief into that code.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go show and that code, the knowing of it, so it can rewire it without all the elements and things that I've tried to use in the past. And that's alcohol or drugs or cigarettes or sex or, all these outward things to try to help me cope. No longer have a place on this journey. Am I cutting myself off from alcohol? No, I'm not allowing myself to drink at home, because I know I have the ability and capability to be in control of my life and to be the master of my ship. That doesn't mean I have to go to extremes like I've always in the past. When I get mad, my extreme is, I'll just take my life. When I'm happy, everything's great and nothing's out of place. It's those extremes. So I love that. Yeah. That's what I'm working with right now, is it's simplicity of letting it come into being, then believing that I have the ability, and then knowing that I have the ability. And I believe that was, I won't say it because it has to do with Christ, but I really think that was the process of Christ going into, as a boy, he realized that he was something, then he believed that he was something, and then he knew that he was something.
Yeah.
And that's why it's lasted for so long. And that knowing is entering into a being of realization.
I love how you talk about the knowing too, because there's a huge, and I feel like that's what we often don't understand, that there's a huge difference between knowledge and a knowing.
Yeah. Huge.
So I love that you emphasize it, because it's completely true. And that knowing is in every cell of your body. And guess what? I don't have to prove myself to anybody.
Anyone.
Knowledge, yes, you have to go and fight for this and say, this is the right perspective. Knowing, I don't care what you believe in, and I don't need to prove myself. I can share if you want to know, but you can take it or leave it. I really don't care if you like it or don't. That's fine with me, and it doesn't affect me at all, because my life is good, or my life is getting better with what I know.
Yeah. It allows me to share the very nature of who I am in that as well. It becomes this, it's knowing in that mindfulness, or that spirit of the natural part of who you are.
I love that. Absolutely.
I heard something that was really cool, and I'm still chewing on this. There's a scientist, and it's a scientist that I follow, and I don't even know his name, but I really like him. Because he's just so profound, and you can tell he thinks beyond the realm of science. He's using cognitive thought process and deduction and logic and spirituality to come to conclusion. Do I know if he's spiritual or not? I have no idea. What I see in him and his words are spiritual in nature. Maybe that's because I associate that. But the scientist that he admires is, I think he was back in the 30s maybe. He's like, I don't believe that light travels at speed. I believe light is already here. I was like,
100%.
That's, it's not, we're not seeing something 13.8 billion years ago. It was already here. I'm like, wow, that's a painted picture. I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
We are light. I mean, technically we are light.
Yeah.
Practically we're learning. Technically we are. So it's just we begin to realize that and recognize that in ourselves. And it starts with, again, just admitting, okay, I'm willing to have a new perspective. And sometimes I remember in my own journey, there was a moment when that gave me a breakthrough because, again, I had that box that I was functioning from in my head, right? And the moment of, what if everything I believe in is not true? And like, whoa, and suddenly there's so many different ways to look at things and so many different perspectives. Like, you say I can take any of that and make it mine? No way, that's so awesome. And so it gave me this like plain field of opportunities and gave me that different perspectives. But we have to question what we believe in because all the beliefs are learned, even through childhood or traumatic experiences in adulthood. And if we just allow ourselves to say, okay, what my perspective is maybe just, I mean, everything we know is learned, period. Everything we know in general is learned. But what sources of information we're referring to, how reliable they are, right? And if they're serving me well, because I can be outside and have someone less fortunate, like a homeless person. We are in the same place, the same time, but our realities are so different. Which one is valid?
Yep.
Neither. Neither, because this is all an illusion technically in this earth plane. We just have to learn to dig to the root of it, like you're saying, right? To find that nature of who we are, to find that intelligence and consciousness that's making our wounds heal, right? If I have that intelligence that allows my body to heal without me sitting there, okay, I'm going to be healing myself now and repairing this little wound. We don't do that with trust. Just like me and you right now trust that my next breath is going to be here for me.
Yep.
Right? I have complete trust that after I eat, I know it's going to be digested. And that's a beautiful thing. And why not to be grateful for that? I feel like also gratitude practice is huge for many reasons and scientifically proven to be very powerful.
And very difficult to be grateful when you have a poor perception of the outward life that you've been brought up in.
Yeah, but even simple terms.
I say outward.
Yeah. But in even simple terms, yeah, of course, we can be struggling with a lot of things. That's hard to be grateful for a lot.
Yeah.
But imagine being in California right now and not having your home along with what you're going through.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, thank God or thank your life that I have my home right now, at least, right?
Yeah.
If we're able to experience that gratitude, even I always think like if I struggle with something, I'm like, okay, imagine I don't have an eyesight right now. I can't see. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh my God, thank God I have that, right? Or not having a limb right now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm perfect. I have no problems. I'm good. Because that could have been so much worse. And it's not to say to always bring examples of worse things, but I feel like to begin to be grateful for what I do have right now, even if it's not out there, maybe internally, thank God my kidneys are working well. Thank God my digestion is working well, my lungs, right? Because if something, I can have a million goals for myself. I want to have this amount of money and get this car and get this job. But if I get sick, the only thing I wish for is to get healthy. So why not focusing on actually what I do have right now as far as health and that's available to me, that I'm able to stand up and walk to another room by myself. Oh my God, I want a jackpot. This is a lottery win, right? I'm able to walk. Some people don't have that luxury, right? And so being grateful, I feel like for internal process that we can possibly be grateful for. And the only thing we need to imagine is to being without that, because we're fortunate to be sitting here having this absolutely inspiring conversation rather than being in the hospital right now with tubes going out of our mouth, right? And being absolutely immobilized.
Been there. I'm blind in my left eye. I know you can't tell. I had brain surgery in 2020 when after the country shut down, and I was going to go. There's a point to this. It's funny that you mentioned blindness and gratefulness. I did my story in February. I did it on Valentine's Day for the soft white underbelly in California.
Mm-hmm.
And after that interview, because of the way I felt during that and the way some of the questions, and it had proved to me that nobody really cared. And in my mind, nobody really cared. And that was what I got out of that interview. I was like, I would never publish that. I would never post it, blah, blah, blah. Well, the very next day I was supposed to meet my friend, and she was like, I was like, I'm good. Didn't tell her I was going to go take my life, but I'm like, I'm good. We don't need to meet. I'm out of here. I'm out of California. It's traumatizing. The roadways are horrible. The people, on 10 miles an hour for 5.5 hours. I was like, it was horrible. I was like, I need to get out of here. These prove this. I'm just going to go do my thing. She talks me into staying, says, I have this friend that I'm supposed to talk to today. Do you mind if we do the call? I met him while I was working at the restaurant. He's really cool. She told me about him. I was like, yeah, let's talk to him. 3 hours later, he backs me off my ledge unintentionally, unknowingly, really. And through this conversation, I find out he's fully blind and had lost his leg 6 months prior. To this day, he's the most profound person I've ever spoken to in my life. We're friends and we talk, and he still speaks the same language. One of the biggest things that I learned through that was, who am I to go to think the way I think when this man's lost so much? Mm-hmm. He's like, Britton, I wouldn't take my leg back, and I wouldn't take my eyesight back for anything, because it's made me this beautiful person. I'm a better man. I'm a better lover. I'm a better boyfriend. I'm a better son. I'm a better friend. I'm a better. I'm like, who am I? And why do I think the way I think? There's something. He's like, I've had the money, the houses, the cars, the women. I wouldn't take any of it back for what I've become. I'm like, that's profound. Mm-hmm. That's, how do you get there? You get there by walking a very, very difficult walk. And sometimes you do it with one leg, and sometimes you do it without sight. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you do it without the physical things that we've been given. You know, I've had the brain tumor, I have the diabetes, I have the poor circulation and the lack of healing. But I believe I also have the ability to heal myself, whether that be physically, emotionally, spiritually. There's a Sufi saying, I went searching for God and only found myself. I went searching for myself and only found God. So there's, and a friend of mine, she says, Britton, you have a drop of God in you. Every person does. I'm like, oh, wow. That's a beautiful painted picture, that we all have a drop of creation in us, whatever that looks like.
More than a drop. I feel like it's more than a drop. I think we, in a very humble way, we are that, because the energy that's within ourselves that created us is God. That's the creativity that's all in the world. I mean, looking at the flowers sometimes and different insects that I don't necessarily like, I'm like, wow, there is that consciousness of such a, like how, like roaches, separate story. I still question the reason for these creatures to be here, but
flies.
They're perfect. They're still perfect in their own way. And if we learn to, see perfection, I feel like, in everything in its own way, again, even though sometimes it's hard, granted, of course, certain things we can possibly justify or condone or, accept, but there is a reason why those things are here, because some people have a mission to work towards that, to end it or to change it or to navigate it in a different way. That's how we all have a mission. And again, the worse the journey, the more beautiful the mission will be, if we have those struggles that we have to overcome.
I love you say, you choked me up on that one earlier. I was about to hit me right in the face. I'm like, man, that's a lot. That's a big call when you have a lot of suffering. But it is true. I see it resonating in my life. The most beautiful thing that I've learned about what I'm doing is that I get to be a part of it. It's not mine. It's not about me. I get to be part of this beautiful unfolding in this grand story that I'm in. Man, it's not because I did something right. It's because I get, it's the privilege to be able to breathe as long as I breathe, and to be part of something so beautiful with humanity as a conscious physical matrix of something that we're involved in. And I got to, I got to be part of it, even though it's really, really hard.
Yeah, sometimes to just acknowledge even within ourselves, even if we bring our, to listen to our heartbeat, right? It's a beautiful organ that gives us this beautiful rhythm. It's like, okay, who is moving that? Well, it's a divine rhythm. It's a song of that universe we're all a part of. And while this thing is still beating, that means we're still on a journey to fulfill whatever we're here to fulfill. So we just have to move forward. And when it's going to be the end, we're going to know that. We'll figure that out. It's going to happen. And feel like knowing, and it's going to sound maybe a little weird, but knowing that there is an end to this journey sometimes also gives us a little perspective that, okay, I'm going to be doing whatever I can. I know that there's going to be an end point. So while I'm here, let me cherish this moments that I have, because it's not going to be lasting too long, and just enjoy, or trying to work towards, again, enjoying and finding that mission and listening to this organ, because just listen to that. Is it still beating? Okay. Now have to keep going. Yes, it's hard. It sucks. It's really bad. You're fully validated. And now we'll have to change that. Let's go and work on changing this kind of situation so that we can get out of it. Everything is valid, but what we do with that matters and counts.
That's beautifully put. Yeah. Is there, we're going to close this out. Is there any words that have, or something that you've done that has profoundly changed your journey, your life, that you utilize on a regular basis to keep you focused and walking the path that you're on?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that changed me. Some of them on a regular basis, some not. But from a regular basis, well, number one, again, ayahuasca in general, that was a very profound experience for me. That gave me tools. Again, it's not a solution. It gives you tools to use. Whether we use it or not, it's your responsibility. But feel like, again, having that, well, prayer for me is everything. Every single night I'm on my knees down on the floor, because I want to surrender my mind and be present with reality of life, which
there's
is
something about being on your knees praying, and it's a surrender of ego. And I find that because I didn't want to pray today. I was like, I'm not going to kneel to you today. And that was yesterday. And I was like, today I'll kneel to you, because this is not about me. And there's something about getting on your knees. It's a surrender of ego. It's not of bowing to this greater creator. It's I'm finding that it's a surrender of my ego.
I love that. Absolutely. And I like to think about, ego is mind, right? We can have healthy ego or not healthy ego, but again, just surrendering from that. And I feel like that practice and having consistency with that, we begin to be more in tune. If we turn off the mind, we begin to actually hear and listen to, and then hear our consciousness and that intelligence, right? And I've had moments, it was so funny. I love those, when I call it divine slap, right? Get a divine slap. There was a moment when I was like, it's so late. I'm like, I'm so tired. I can't. I'll pray tomorrow. I'm just getting to bed. And in my head, there's a very gentle and kind voice that asked me, did you shower today? Did you brush your teeth? You had strength for that? And I was like, got it. Going on my knees right now. Yes, you're right. I did that because.
Do you think that's your guilty conscious, or is that
No.
or is that your kind reminder?
It's my soul. It's my higher power. It's my guides and protector. It's just reminding me of what's real and what's not. If I had the strength and the energy to brush my teeth right now, because what I prioritize material over spiritual, I have things and I have the energy for that, but I don't have actual energy for the real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, for me it's not a guilt, but I'm like, point taken. I'm going down. Yes, let's go.
It's the kind reminder. No, I get that. I feel that. Oftentimes we could put that as guilt or negative talk towards ourselves, but it is a kind reminder. And that's the thing. Another friend told me, it was like, your spirit wouldn't talk the same way to you as you do to it.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, my spirit has actually never spoken poorly to me. It's never. And I would consider that the mother of the Holy Spirit is what I would
I love that.
And because the mother in its truest nature would never speak poorly to its child. And and I get some lashback from this, but I believe the mother has the ability to teach the boy to be a man. I believe she has the innate ability to show a boy how to be a warrior. I believe that's built within her. And we're so often we discount that, or, well, the man's absent. Yeah, the man has an important role. Absolutely. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying the mother has a bond with a child that is like that a man can never understand. We only understand it if we understand how powerful and beautiful the mother is. Because then we understand the bond between the boy and the mom. But I believe if the mom fails for any child, that is a catalyst for major destruction, because the mother is the last line of defense between trauma and living a solid, powerful life. And I've seen it over and over and over. You can have an absent father, but when the mother's absent, there's certain elements that are stripped from a child.
But we also can look at it from other perspective, that there is a sacred contract in a way that the mother had to be that for the child, because the child has to learn something from that. So they can blaming parents too for our misfortunes, no matter how hard they are. It's not going to be productive for our healing and not conducive to our healing anyway.
Right.
But your point is absolutely valid. Yeah, it can be another very challenging thing to try to work through, and rough for a lot of people, because these are the major, again, our parents to us are gods when we're growing up. They're everything. They're the life
they're that
itself.
representation for sure.
Absolutely. And everything has been encoded since we're from 2 to 4 to 6. That's when we're soaking in everything, and we make that our belief system, what we see. So of course it's very important to hopefully have a very good support system from our parents, and good examples too, and receiving, and we'll have those needs to be validated, cared for, loved, right? If nobody teaches me how to ride a bike, how can I know, right? The same as if nobody is validating me, saying to me, you're enough, it doesn't matter, it's a mistake, it's fine, okay, how can we do differently next time, right? Of course, mistakes are so good for you. I remember there was a lady, I forgot her name, but she was saying how she was raised, and her father would always ask them how they failed today, and he would be disappointed if they don't have any failure during the day. They're like, we've learned to be so okay with the failure that they're making crazy money right now because they were never afraid to fail. They're like, of course I'm going to fail, let me go for it. I love it. My father will be proud, so to say. And we have to rethink that. But I feel like, again, having that very nice way to put it, and having those needs met too, of learning who we are through this kind of connection between mother and the child, it's a very important thing, because that can help us avoid a lot of different things happening in the future. Because if I don't know how to validate myself or to love myself, then suddenly someone on the outside is giving me that, let's say partner, right, or a friend, I'll be like, oh my God, I feel so good. And we grasp, that's become the codependence, because we rely on this person to deliver to us what we're so desperately need or want. Probably it's a need already by then. That's how we end up in abusive relationships, substance use, right? Because we don't have that self-love. If I truly learn to love myself, I'm never going to put anything in me that's not good.
Right.
Why would I harm myself? I love myself. Are you kidding? And that's not from ego perspective. It's from very healthy kind of self-love. This is the only self that I get for this lifetime. I got to learn to love it. It's here for a reason. It's given to me by some divine force, right? Maybe with my kind of little insights in there, and saying, okay, I want to try to establish this during this lifetime. I want to learn that, right? Because I have a belief that we do create certain experiences before we come to this earth, and we have certain things that we want to learn. Just sometimes I wonder, how did I have the imagination to do this to myself? Like, I don't know why. What was I thinking? I was thinking that's going to be fun and great to go through. No. But I feel like just to have more trust in the process, that just like we had to have the trust. I mean, we cannot deny we have the trust in our breath, the next breath that we take. So we got to extend that, learn to see that there is something that's leading me somewhere, and whatever that is, I know I'm going to find that lesson from that that's positive, and I know it's happening for my highest good, and I know I'm safe to go through that, even though it doesn't feel like I'm safe. I have to believe that I'm safe, and if I believe that, I get that peace, because if I believe that everything is happening for my highest good, I get that peace instantly. Because I'm like, okay, it's going to be figured out. Just having trust. Do I have my next breath? I'm not trying to lunge for that. I'm not trying to seek it. No. Okay. All right. So it's going to be figured out. Of course, I have to take steps, right, to do that. But there has to be a balance of where we push and when we let go and say, okay, let me see how that's going to play out right now. I'm not going to force it, not going to push it, not going to put that I want that or I need that, right? Like we have about people sometimes, and it's just the want, it's not a need. And sometimes we have to let go.
I call that watching the unfolding, like stepping back from your expectation and watching everything unfold. There's a lot of peace in that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of gratefulness and thankfulness and beauty, and just watching, showing up, doing the work, and then watching the unfolding, because you can't do anything about the outcome. So
love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the Suicide Monk. And Alisa, thank you for all your wealth of knowledge and everything that you're doing. It's appreciated by.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us today in this conversation. And next, we're going to have a word from Scarlet Raven from White Fox Medicinals. Thanks. And we'll see you on the good side.
Hi, I'm Scarlet Raven, and I am the head alchemist and founder of White Fox Medicinals, which is an all-organic, earth-based plant medicine remedy company where I make effect-based tinctures and topicals to help you feel healed, whole, and totally loved. I have stuff like the Repair Remedy Salve that will take out inflammation and pain from your muscles and your body. Other things that actually boost your spiritual inner love, like the Wild Starseed Love Cream. When you put this on, you smell intense aromas of deep Aztec chocolate, which awakens this love inside of your heart. This is edible. You can use it as a body cream. I also have a whole line of tinctures. Some of them heal the nervous system. Some of them boost your body's ability to heal itself. So whatever you're seeking for whole physical balance, that's going to incorporate your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit, then I have some beautiful healing offerings for you. So go check it out at whitefoxmedicinals.com, and I'm happy to get you all set up.